Greetings. My name is Mahialani Uchiyama, Director of the Center for International Dance. Welcome to Dare, Conversations in the Diaspora. Dare is a production of the African American Mbira Project, an initiative to perpetuate the music and tradition of the Mbira within the African American community. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that I reside in the Bay Area, a land contemporarily known as Oloni territory. There are 8 language dialects and many active tribal groups. With Dare, we aspire to explore the music of Zimbabwe and other performance traditions which exist in the diaspora. Our conversations with artists will focus on their art form and their personal journey. Additionally, you will have a chance to ask questions of our guests. Kiazi Malonga has been immersed in Congolese performing arts as the son of his late father, the legendary master artist Malonga Casquelourd. In addition to his lifetime of experience performing and teaching Congolese music and dance, he is also the founder of Pelisa Energy, a nonprofit enterprise committed to introducing off-grid solar energy to the Congo, and will soon be releasing his first CD, Dembo Kya Ngoma. I am delighted to welcome Kiazi Malonga.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm just tickled. That's how I am. Thank you so much for joining us. And I just have to say, your dad was really important, well, to many people, but when I first moved to the Bay Area in the early 1980s from Honolulu, I met him like pretty much right at that first few weeks because I started
Mhm,
teaching at the Old Everybody's Creative Arts Center, where
mhm,
your dad was one of the instructors, and he was just so generous with. He became like a mentor to me
mhm,
because I didn't know anything. I was brand new. I was like trying to figure out the scene, and
mhm,
he would just talk to me about things that I
mhm,
needed to know, moving into this really dynamic creative community that we're a part of. And so
mhm.
um, I will forever be grateful to him.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you.
really delighted to have the chance to speak with you now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course. Um, could you share a little bit about your dad for those, there are people from all over the place who will see this, who may
Hmm.
not necessarily know about Malonga Casquelourd and who he was, and um, yeah, could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So my father, Malonga Casquelourd, was a man of many talents, and he's almost seemed like he was everywhere at once. There's not many places I can go today where there isn't, if not a person that's there or a person that knows someone else who kind of recognizes my name and says, "Are you related to?" So my father was an ambassador, I would say. One of many things, but primarily an ambassador of not only Congolese culture but diaspora, African diaspora culture introducing that to the Western United States, in New York where he landed, and in California, kind of where he made and put his roots in. And so he in his life was able to accomplish so much. You have Fwadia Congo, which was the performing arts group that he founded in 1977. You have the Congolese dance and drum camp, which was the first African dance and drum camp of that structure and style. And these days, you have so many different renditions and versions, and people have added different elements. But that was the first. He was also very active in teaching. Like you said, he was teaching at the Everybody Arts Community Center. I think I was young at that time. But he also taught on the university circuit. He was a professor at San Francisco State. During my time at Stanford, he actually taught at Stanford then and even before I was born. And so he was just a very active person and advocate in the arts. He was funny. He had a warrior spirit. So like there was an edge about him, but there was also a warmth. So I think that it's just a real complex person, but it really brings like a lot of good stories or funny stories or smiles when his name comes up. And it's Chuck's almost been almost 20 years since he's passed. So
Yeah, you're right. He was everywhere. I mean, there was a period of time when I was dancing the Orinoco Caribbean dancers and drummers at the old Caribbean Dance Center, and he was there. He would be drumming with us, and working with the director of that group, Margaret Haynes.
hmm
He was everywhere. He seemed to be doing so much.
hmm
And what about his way of? I mean, you have such a sense of presence and connection. Um, I wonder if you could share a little bit about, what it is that your father did to instill in you this sense of pride and the sense of knowing who you are.
it's funny because he would talk to us, my siblings and I, and at that time there were three of us, myself, my two sisters, at a young age, like we were adults. And by that I mean he would tell us, you guys are African, be proud of that. We he always talked to us as if he brought us here from the Congo, even though we were born in the United States. And so the sense of pride that we have comes from an early kind of education, an early sense of him planting in us a sense of identity, a sense of, we're here in the States, but that's not the end all be all, right? We have family, a community, culture back in the Congo that we, need to remain connected to. And he took us on the first trip. We were all under 10 and really made it important for us to be involved in the arts. There were no babysitters. So for performances, for shows at the Caribbean that you mentioned, I had a funny story. I would be a little kid there. When I get tired of drumming, and I forget her name. She was a bartender. I would always ask for root beers, and I would get free root beer every time right at the bar. So I mean, he just made sure, as he taught and shared his culture, that us as his children knew our relationship to that, and he didn't accept for us not to be involved and not to learn, because that was us learning about ourselves as well.
I remember you from those days. Being at that bar, that's a sweet memory. Thank you for that. So the one of the companies that your father founded, legendary, amazing. People are still very influenced by the experience of either having been a part of or having witnessed performances of Fwadia Congo.
hmm
That was essentially a family setting, right? That you
It
were
was.
immersed in, which was so culturally vibrant. Can you
hmm
share a little bit about that?
The group, as you mentioned, the group was many things to many people. I think that one of the things that every group member, for whatever period of time that they pass through, be it a year or you have veterans that dance for 10 plus years, it was a family, an extended family setting. And so for us, it was, uncles and aunties more than you could count, right? And it was a very comfortable setting, but we were constantly learning, not knowing that you're absorbing all of the elements about performance, about the relationship between the music, the drum, and the dance and the song, right? He used it like, killing or not killing three birds with one stone, but basically like, killing a few birds with one stone. He's teaching the group, he's sharing the culture, and at the same time, the children are involved. And so for us, it was a very warm memory. As a child, you get tired fast. So I do remember cold nights when he's talking because he was a talker and he connected with people. So that meant the rehearsal was over at 10 and we might be in the car until 11:30 because dad has a conversation that he's having trouble pulling away from. And it could be something that just about planning for the next day or the upcoming show. But a bunch of great memories, a bunch of lessons learned, direct and indirect, that I still carry with myself to this day, and that I try to infuse in when I'm able to share about my culture with others in the community.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's always about that family, that extended family,
Hmm.
that the spirit and the culture is best expressed and
Hmm.
shared.
Hmm.
All over the continent of Africa, speaking of culture being shared, music has been historically used as a vehicle, hasn't it,
Hmm.
to reinforce and to strengthen our connection to spirituality.
Hmm.
Um, I know that there are I don't know anything about the kind of drumming that you do, but I do know that
Hmm.
there's significance to certain rhythms that you play, and I
Hmm.
wonder if you could share any insight about the drum itself and particular rhythms that have certain meanings.
Yeah, definitely. So the drum that I play is called ngoma. This drum, this style of drum, you find majority all through Bantu speaking sub-Saharan Africa. Some version of it. If you see them behind me, there you go. Exactly. Right. They're tall, usually mid chest height drums that come from a series of different trees, and just it like you mentioned, the music is a part of our everyday life. The ngoma for Congolese people is the mother, right? And I'm gonna mess this word up, so be patient. When matriarchal culture or music, kind of how we categorize the music is through the female lineage. We refer to the drum as female, the mother, right? And then the accompaniment are the children. And so that is the voice of of Congolese people when we worship. There is a denomination of uh, kind of spirituality called Ngunza, and the rhythm that's played during worship is Ingishila, and that is a very high pace, high energy rhythm. It's one of those that can take you over and kind of have you feel that out of body experience rather easily. You have bamboo and shakers that are part of that. You have healing rhythms like Zebola, which is much more soft. It's a 6/8 feel. Um, and so ultimately, you have music in every element of life for celebration, for mourning, for worship. And so it's really the voice of our people, and it's just something I've grown to love more and more.
Would you kindly share a little bit of your music with us, with our audience?
Me?
Yes.
Of course, I will be happy to.
Awesome. And as you're getting set up, let me just mention for our audience, we'd love to hear from you if you have any questions for Kiazi. And also, the African American Theater Project is one of the projects of the Center for International Dance, which is a nonprofit organization. And we ask if you would be willing to offer any support to our organization. It would be greatly appreciated. For this project in particular, is our newest effort. And we have a number of other things that we do, but our primary focus is to connect people and to enable us to appreciate the beauty of who we all are. So hopefully we are ready to go with some drumming from Kiazi Malonga.
Just a little bit.
Love it,
Thank you, thank you,
love
thank you, thank you,
love
thank
it,
you.
love it.
All right. So hopefully that wasn't too loud for you guys.
It was perfect. It was perfect. It was just right.
Awesome.
I know it can be quite a bit louder. I do understand that, but that was absolutely perfect.
Yeah, it's a challenge trying to tame the energy because it's build up. It's a very energetic and spiritual instrument that has a have a lot of ties to it. So
Hmm.
once the engine gets going, it's kind of hard to rev it down. So you have to ease into it, ease into it.
Yes, indeed. You'd mentioned about how the Ngoma is pretty ubiquitous in the Bantu speaking
Hmm.
regions. Um, there, it, it it occurs to me that Congolese culture, there's so many of us who whose ancestors were enslaved people who were brought to the continent against their will, of course,
Hmm.
came from a lot of these regions.
Hmm.
Uh, and I wonder if you have any thoughts about what most of us here in the US may not know about the Congo
Hmm.
and its contributions to who we are.
Hmm. Hmm. No, I think it's a really important topic, and not to get too political, but I think about this a lot when I try to figure out, okay, what I received from my dad and the community that he developed around in terms of the culture, right? And
Hmm.
so there's a proverb translated to like when you're given something, right? Before you pass it along to the next person, you need to add some sort of value to it. So when I'm thinking about the value add for me, and I think about this question about, it's really about developing more of a connection between African Americans in the United States and Africans on the continent. I think because there's been so many years, there's been such an effort to disconnect us, right? And there's a lot more in common. First, uh, Congo's contribution, I guess, first on the list, I would say it's people. Um, for whatever reason, the Congo contributed, and it's everything I'm saying is Googleable, so please check the facts. But it's anywhere from 45 to 50% of the total slaves that left the African continent were from the Congo. So when you think about like contribution, it's just at the very basic level, it's human bodies. Um, After that, you talk about present day. We're on technology. I'm on laptop, cell phone. Um, Congo is contributing. I think it's a huge percent of the coltan, the mineral that allows for our technology to kind of work throughout the entire world, right? And there's a lot to be said about just like the richest in a place like that, but just the challenges that they still face from a developmental level. And then more kind of close to home, I think when you look at the spirit and resilience of African Americans, you look at the history through slavery, through civil rights, and still able to produce like people to that will just are amazing in history, right? Historical figures to this day, and you talk about that resilience and that kind of warrior spirit. Even though you put us down, we're still up. That's very Congolese. You talk about um, just the from a musical perspective, Congolese music is really funky. It's really rhythmic-y, and it's really like really flowing. I think the way that African Americans have a relationship with music and rhythm, it follows that same. And these are elements that also come from other areas of Africa as well. So it's not specific just to the Congo, but I think that the Congo, in terms of the spirit of its people, the ability for folks to want to actually enjoy and be social and get together. When you go, the first time I was in the Congo as an adult, I marveled at how alive the city was from 5 in the morning until like really late at night. So the spirit of the people was something that I you know, identified with or saw familiar from my experiences here. So
That's beautiful. So you consider you are a child of the Congo,
yes,
and you're also an African American.
yes,
And so in many ways, you have that direct relationship to the culture of our ancestors that many of us here are seeking to build.
hmm
I know you just alluded to that, but
hmm
I'm wondering if you have any advice that you can offer to those of us here in diaspora who
hmm
are attempting to create and to strengthen that connection to the
hmm
mother.
So I'll give suggestions to both sides. I was talking to a buddy of mine, say he's Jewish, and they have, aside from all other politics, the Jewish folks in the rest of the world, right? They have the opportunity to visit Israel on like all expense paid. Come see where you're from and whatever is incorporated in that trip. And I know there was a return home to like Ghana a few years ago, but I'm basically getting at is that Africans need to understand, and I think they do. It's just the lacking from the Jewish example to actual Africa is the ability to actually to put it together and the funding behind it, right? But it's just Africans need to understand that as they refer to African Americans, long lost children, family, right? Um, so have those open arms and be open to having those conversations. I think for us as ambassadors, when we're here, be open to like sharing culture and identifying, maybe similarities with African American friends and letting each other know that we are the same, and on the African American side, I can just ask if you know anybody who's African, somebody you work with, or I mean, there's enough of us in the Bay Area. You might be friends with somebody. Just ask questions. And Africans are very welcoming. Not to generalize, but we welcome people, and we're a kind-hearted, group of folks. And so I would just encourage more dialogue. Um, and I will continue to share my music as a bridge to invite people in. I think other artists should continue to do that, and just and really target the African American communities to try to build. If we don't do that work, and letting them know, hey, 'cause I'm young, I was young, and with the African name, I got teased, right? But then they tease you because they don't know any better. But then once you realize, like this is where you're from, and you look like somebody I saw back there. Here's the picture. Look at, what I mean? You start to make those connections, and you reflect, and you can have a building from there. So I think that there's an opportunity on both sides to kind of do a little bit more and just be a little bit more open-minded. And I'll start with just or continue my work as a bridge to try to push that along.
I think the work that you're doing is pretty amazing as a teacher and as the many things that you do. Um, I'd like to segue a little bit right now to ask you about this initiative that you've begun, Pelisa.
Hmm.
What is that? Tell us about it.
Pelisa Energy is again, it comes back to my dad. Pelisa Energy is a seed that he set in me as a child, and it was one of those talks. Kiazi, you were here in this country, but don't forget. He would always, he never pointed straight. It was always a baby finger that came out. It was always a weird point at me, Kiazi. You're here in this country, but don't forget you have a lot of opportunities that we didn't have back home. Go to school, and he wanted me to do engineering. Go to school, do engineering, and then figure out something to take back home and help, right? So after completing my undergrad and going to grad school, I learned I had an affinity. It came from an affinity of gardening, and then which then developed into a career in energy, renewable energy, energy efficiency. And so Pelisa is an organization that I started in 2017 when I left my career at PG&E to bring off-grid solar to the Congo. Off-grid solar, for those of you who don't know, are smaller solar systems that have appliances that connect directly to them. So you have like lights and radios and phone chargers, and that they're at an affordable price. And so we introduced this technology that had not been in the Congo yet, and we have just been pushing. I mean, long story short, I was there when the shutdown happened in March and got flown back. So it's we've been able to do annual donations. We have another pandemic relief effort coming up
Mm.
in April, where we're targeting 5 villages to give to hospitals and schools. We educate. We have monthly classes, and we also sell in the market. And so Pelisa really is an initiative to get affordable, of renewable, clean energy to communities that don't have access to regular, reliable electricity and energy.
I'm a proud auntie. I just got to tell you that.
Thank you. Thank
I'm
you
a
so much.
I'm a proud auntie when I hear you
Thank you.
when yeah, it's
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you so much.
We have a question from Samia Karimi,
Hmm.
and that is I have my glasses on because otherwise I can't read it. Music, dance, folklore are the most direct path to one's ancestors. As an African American, that is a big reason why I study and practice traditional dance forms. Do you have the same experience, and do you work with youth to help them connect to a deeper source of identity? Thank you and blessings both for sharing.
So as an African, I'm a big reason why I study. I'm trying. Just it was an awesome question. So in terms of just making sure I want to answer it, I definitely use my uh, folkloric dance as a way to connect back home. It's something that keeps me grounded. I try to travel outside of my work with Pelisa. I try to keep or travel back to the Congo because culture and music is always evolving, right? And so as a practitioner, you kind of have to do your work and go check in to make sure that everything is still on the up and up. But as a result of that, yes, I definitely work with youth. I love their energy. I just finished a first round of it was an Ngoma apprenticeship that we actually did. It was a 10-week apprenticeship
Mm.
with two young men. 110, 111, where they were introduced to the ngoma. They learned rhythms, they learned songs. We were social distancing, but they were able to have a recital. It was funded by a good friend of mine who's a doctor, Dr. Bautista, his foundation. And then that we the shutdown is among us, but we were focused on this next apprenticeship with two young ladies. So hopefully after things kind of calm down, we can do that. But yeah, youth is the way of the future. And art and folklore is definitely a way that I kind of stay grounded and stay connected to my home away from home while I'm here in the States.
Beautiful. And thank you so much, Samia, for the question.
Yeah.
Just want to segue to Mbira, as this
Hmm.
is the main focus of this project.
Hmm.
Uh, to mention that there are Mbira-like instruments throughout the continent, the sub-Saharan African continent. That
Hmm.
each of them have their own unique structure and playing technique.
Hmm.
One of the earlier memories I have of your dad, when I first met him, just as you mentioned, he was just like he was in the hallway or something, at this dance center that we were teaching. He was just playing. He was just
Hmm.
playing. I don't know if it was a likembe or a kalimba or whatever it was.
Hmm.
Um, it just felt very natural and very easy, and just how he was passing that moment in time. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about um, the the kind of instrument
Uh-huh.
that is played in Congo, and
Mhm.
what you have, what you play.
Got it. Got it. No, thank you for the question. It was I had many moments like those with my dad. So this instrument in Kikongo is called kisansi, in Lingala it's called likembe. And like you said, in Bantu speaking Africa, I mean, it's Bantu, the Bantu ethnic groups were all one big family. So where you find Ngoma, you find Ngoma over. I was drumming in Lake Merritt, sidebar, sorry, um, at that on a Sunday, and this brother from Uganda came up, and I didn't know, I knew his brother from the continent. He asked, what's this in? I said, this is Ngoma. Oh, we have Ngomas too. So just, we're a huge family, and so that spans beyond just the actual drumming with other instruments that are also a part of our cultural practice. And as the easiest way to describe it is just piano, kisan simbira. It's an instrument in Congolese culture that is used during healing. If you see the traditional healer, it can be based on, I guess the best way to call it would be if you got a prescription or whatever, like not prescription, but if the diagnosis was you need this X, Y, and Z for your healing. Sometimes the uh, ceremony could require playing of the kisansi for that. It also is used in storytelling. Um, in times before the car, when you had to walk to a village and use legs that we got Uber and BART and bicycles, but back then, sometimes you had to walk. And to pass time, you have your instrument with you. So storytelling, healing, um, yeah, and it's a very melodic, wonderful sound, and yeah, yeah.
Well, would you be willing to share a little bit of that melodic, wonderful sound with us?
Yes, I will share also uh, just a heads up. So I play with this. I learned to play from my father. We would sit in silence and we wouldn't talk and we would play, and that's how we passed time. Um, and when he passed, I kind of stopped. So I still play. My progress hasn't. It's just one of those things. It was like a season in life. You know what I mean? I learned early on that life is about seasons, right? And I love the instrument, still play it, but I haven't progressed with it in the same way that I did the ngoma. So yes, I can play, but please don't judge my skills. Hopefully you like the song, or I'll wait to grab it. But hopefully you like the song. So yeah, I'll play something for you.
Thank you, Kiazi, and it's going to be wonderful. And as we're getting set up for that, again, let me just mention that this is a branch of the Center for International Dance, a nonprofit organization. Any kind of donation that you would be willing to share with us would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing. That was
Thank
beautiful.
you, thank you.
That's
I used to be
beautiful.
way better. I really
Come
did. But
on. No, that was absolutely perfect. Thank you.
and just to
Yeah.
jump in, I want to say something just to piggyback,
Yes.
guys. For those of you who are watching, definitely support the arts. Um, it's something that can be easily looked over. It's the first thing to cut when the budget gets tight. But for those of you who've experienced the magic that the arts can bring you, the people you can meet, the connections you can make. That was one of the things my father always said was like, don't underestimate what this music, what these arts can bring you. You'll be connected to people from all walks of life. So I just second Auntie Mahea's, push encouragement to if you can in this hard times, think for the future. But art is definitely something that will be part of our healing process and be part of our, society to continue to progress forward.
Matondo. Thank
Mhm.
you. Thank you. That was beautiful.
Mhm.
Tell us about your new CD.
Ah, my new city, Tembo Kyangoma, has been in the making for some time. Tembo Kyangoma means in Kikongo the wind of the drum, the wind of the ngoma. And so, as in many Bantu speaking languages, they're often like metaphors that come along with you say one thing and it has a meaning at the surface, but as you dig into it, it's like an onion, it has layers. And so, the other side of that can speak to vibration of the drum and the way that music kind of touches you and pierces your soul. And so it's just a way for me to one, pay respect to all of my teachers. I have four teachers. I've incorporated primarily ngoma music. There is some guitar. There is some a bunch of other percussive instruments from the Congo, and I am super excited about it.
Me too.
Mhm.
And I've been really looking forward to it being released. And you're thinking maybe sometime in the next few months.
I'm looking. We're hoping to do a January release. Right
Okay.
now we're looking at some options, but definitely follow me if you liked like the Ngoma or the Kisansi are interested in kind of following the project. My social media handle is at Malonga Music on Facebook and on Instagram, and so I'll be giving updates as to like the expected dates and such. So yeah, I'm really sure that people will like the music because when I like it and I hope that I have a good taste. So I think you guys will enjoy it.
Thank you. I'm gonna. Well, I think I've already signed up, but yeah, I'll be looking for that most definitely. Kiazi, I really want to thank you so much for spending this time with us and sharing your story and your music and your passion and your artistry with us today. Thank you so, so very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to just fellowship, even though it's from afar, right? Hopefully, this pandemic can pass so we can return to normal. But in the meantime, you know, our creation, our discussions around the arts, our encouragement of each other cannot stop. So I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Kondo, thank you so much. Be well.
Thank you too.
And I would love to also thank our viewers for joining us this evening, and to those who submitted questions, thank you. Ndare Conversations in the Diaspora is a program of the Mahea Uchiyama Center for International Dance, a nonprofit organization dedicated to fostering cross-cultural understanding in our community through dance and music. We'd like to encourage you to consider a donation to our nonprofit following the link on your screen. Now, because of the upcoming holiday, we will take a break next month, but we will be back on Saturday, February 6th at 2 p.m. with Julia Chigamba, the founder and director of the Chinyakare Ensemble, an organization dedicated to sharing the rich heritage of Zimbabwean music and dance. Until then, be well, stay safe, have a blessed and wonderful holiday season, and keep the music in your heart.